Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the latest episode of What We Do in the Shadows, Laszlo's Father. And I really loved this one. I think this was a really great episode that was really firing on all cylinders, that we got a good A storyline in figuring out what's going on with Laszlo and his father, played by Steve Coogan. Let me see, Steve Coogan? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Yes. And then the B storyline of Nadja and Nandor and a little bit of Guillermo dealing with this whole kind of Airbnb situation. So, which one do I want to tackle first? Because they both kind of intersect at certain kind of points, but they kind of do their own kind of things. So we see, let's hit with the B storyline first, because it's not as involved, but it is involved in certain kind of respects. So, while Laszlo is dealing with this whole father situation, we see that Nandor was writing a letter to the guide, pretty much kind of like, I think, confessing some feelings and stuff like that, when he accidentally knocks over a candle, and they find out that they have neighbors on the other side. And they're like completely flabbergasted by this. It's like there was a window here where the scroll burnt up and everything. And then they essentially go into a rear window kind of scenario of looking at what's going on. Now, Guillermo keeps pretty much telling them that he had explained to them what an Airbnb situation was, but the whole funny kind of bit throughout the whole episode is they keep telling him to shut the fuck up about it until he actually goes into and really kind of explains it a little bit more again, so that way they know what's kind of going on, because they're looking at it and a lot of different people are coming through the house. So what is their deduction for what's going on here? Shapeshifters. This, of course, brings us up to Nandor's relationship with the shapeshifter, her turning into a possum and kind of fucking off. This becomes important later on in the episode. So they're kind of just like, alright, fuck this shit. Now this is a little bit where it intersects. Nadja decides to go over and pretty much gets hit on by Laszlo's father as they're pretty much trying to screw with the jalopy. And she's like, oh, alright. But she goes in, we essentially have a rear window situation as she's like sneaking through the house, but then of course they're using walkie-talkies and Nandor is fucking talking all the time and giving away her position and shit as the, well, we don't know what they are at this point, but I thought it would be like funny to see kind of what kind of goes on with this at the end. So I'm like, it really does a good kind of thing as she kind of escapes and gets out of there, and then Nandor's like, wait a minute, there were points in time where I didn't have my eyes on you. And essentially we get a little bit of the thing kind of going on where it's like, alright, tell me shit. And she's like, I don't care. Like, if I knew shit about you, that would totally make me be the shapeshifter, because I don't give a fuck about you and I don't give a shit about what you do. And then she's like, wait a minute, there were parts where I didn't see you. And then they flip it, and then we have Nandor tied onto the chair, and her and the doll fucking interrogating his ass as the doll then slaps him and stuff like this. This, of course, sets off the owner of the Airbnb as they come in and figure out what the fuck's kind of going on. Now, she is freaking out because she's not supposed to be allowed to do this kind of shit, but she's like, hey, we could kind of work something out, as Guillermo pretty much gives them the kind of rundown of what's going on, and that they pretty much have this kind of deal now. Let's see. They stay rent-free for 1 weekend every month, and they're like enjoying their stay and everything. Like, bye Felicia and take Karen with you kind of whole thing. They're in their robes and stuff. The owner brings cookies and stuff like that, and of course Guillermo's enjoying his shit and everything. But as we see that she's leaving, she then turns into a possum and leaves. So the thing is, we're thinking, oh, they weren't shapeshifters, they were just humans or anything. And it's like, at least the owner of the Airbnb is a shapeshifter. And then she turns into a possum. So I'm wondering if that is kind of linking up with Nandor's lover, or if just for some reason she just fucking turned into a possum for shits and giggles. Who knows? But that was actually pretty kind of cool. And I just loved how it's like, you know what? It would be kind of funny if they were shapeshifters, but they were able to kind of play out the kind of situation, and it just executed very well. Especially seeing our characters kind of devolve into kind of crazy chaos, and they're vampires. Of course they would get sucked into kind of mundane shit when you've got like eternity and you're trying to figure out what to fucking do. Who the fuck's next door? What the fuck are they doing? And Guillermo's like, I've already explained this concept to you. And it's funny of like, why do you keep talking about air and pee-pee or whatnot? And it's like, oh my god, I love these actors, and I love when they're on point, when they just fucking riff it like ain't nobody's business. But the main story that we got was Laszlo and his father. So we see that Laszlo is like, something is fucking going on. There's like something going around on the house, and he pretty much gets Nadja to do a summoning to see what's going on, and we get introduced to his father. And that his unresolved business is that he wants to make up with his son, is what he says. And he's like, do not listen to this motherfucker. And of course he starts kind of ingratiating himself to all of the house members. We learn about like all of his names and everything. He pretty much, we see the kind of grandiosity that Laszlo pretty much has. Him pretty much getting with all the people and linking up pretty much with Colin Robinson, pretty much just because Colin shifted his Funko Pop collection to a safe, and that he showed actual kind of genuine interest in what he wanted, like in the Funko Pops and everything like that. And it really kind of affected Colin. He's like, wow, this is kind of cool. Pretty much getting into like a surrogate kind of dad situation kind of thing. And it's really throwing Laszlo off. He's like, what's his fucking game? What's kind of going on here? Let's see here. And evidently that Laszlo was constantly humiliated by his father when he was alive. He tried to use this like spirit catcher device, which of course looks like a proton pack, because he's he had seen Ghostbusters 2 pretty much with Colin Robinson. And we also see that Roderick is kind of playing down Laszlo's kind of accomplishments, because he sees the monsters like, what the fuck's kind of going up with that? It's like, oh yes, I created life and everything like that. It's like, oh yeah, I tried to do that. All I got was like a thing of body parts sewn together. I didn't really get towards the other kind of thing. It's like, so it kind of shows us that Laszlo kind of had this thing that, yes, of course, he's kind of an aristocrat and kind of just is doing shit to kind of fuck off and just kind of fill time. But in this, it kind of shows us that he was attempting to pretty much, even if he forgets because of how long he lives his life, he's decided to kind of like try and do something and continue something farther than his father was able to do. But he decides to give him a second chance. He's like, please, 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 just let me kind of do this. We also see them trying to pretty much use the jalopy and it kind of blowing up, and Colin and Laszlo trying to fix it. They get Guillermo roped up into it, being his manservant, and Roderick being like, yeah, I used to do shit with my manservants. Like, that's not our relationship. And Guillermo's just like kind of more in the background here, and I like that. There's certain kind of instances where we want to have the characters pulled to the fore, but it's gotten to the point where each of the characters is pretty much fleshed out enough that it's alright to have them kind of in the background and kind of just vibing and doing their own kind of shit, and just be like, okay, I'm pulled into some weird fucking shit, and just to see how they kind of react in the background. Hopefully we get a little bit more of the guide later on to kind of give her at least something. Her dealing with like Jerry will be interesting to see. But we see that this kind of culminates with Colin calling him dad and having a nice kind of moment where they try to hug each other. But we see that it starts to escalate when Laszlo finds Roderick in his laboratory with the Book of Souls. Let's see, Book of Souls. Yeah, and Laszlo, of course, thinks that he's attempting to take over possession of the body of the monster since he's, like, wrapped up and everything. Roger's like, nah, fuck that shit. I want your ass, bitch. Because it's just fucking horrible in the afterlife. Mixing with all of the classes and talking to poor people and not being able to fuck or do anything like that. It's like, oh my god, you whiny little shit. It's like, there's gotta be other kind of ways, motherfucker, other than, like, literally taking over your son. Like, Laszlo's father is a shit. And that's like the shit on top of that. And then talking about like killing his mother and shit like that is like, oh my god. There's a lot of shit that they start kind of like cracking into. And it's like, they're still got the balance of levity, but seriousness as well. Laszlo is just like, fuck you. Actually really taking his father to task for his failures of being a father. And the funny thing is, Laszlo pretty much brought up to Colin's like, I was your father, man. I fucking raised you as a little baby. But evidently, Colin doesn't have that recollection at all. So, like, he pretty much got, like, memory jacked into, like, the Colin Robinson persona. But the thing is, Laszlo was a better father to Colin, and is even demonstrated to be a better father than his own father in this episode with how he deals with this situation. So, he's pretty much almost getting sucked into the Book of Soul, like, well, not sucked into the Book of Souls, but getting sucked into the kind of spell's radius as Roderick is performing the ritual. But the monster is able to break free and able to give him the Spirit Catcher pack. He's able to suck his dad in, and it's funny, they have a lot of suck-off jokes on that, and they could have been overdone, and they could have sucked, but they balanced him well enough, and he's pretty much got him in this, like, hourglass-looking fucking thing. But then we see that Colin pops in, and is wondering kind of where he went and everything, and Laszlo covers for his dad. But not for his dad's sake, but for Colin's sake. He does what a father does. A good father. Like, you're not supposed to lie. Sure. But he is able to present the situation enough that it spares Colin's feelings because he knows how much it would hurt him that his father's a dick. I mean, it hurts Laszlo enough, but he does the kind of good thing to assuage his kind of feelings, be like, hey, take this weird-ass little fucking thing because he wants you to have it, and keep it someplace safe where he then locks it up with the Funkos. And I love that we get good stories, lore-building stuff out, getting the whole shapeshifters kind of into the forefront for some more kind of zany stuff with other kind of creatures, and good character development. Laszlo really took the center stage on this one, but it was also augmented with Colin's as well, with his, well, we've seen that Colin is definitely a lonely one, especially with how energy vampires kind of operate, but him trying to get a friend in the monster, him trying to get that kind of father figure from Roderick, but still having that kind of father figure from Laszlo without him even kind of really realizing it. He still thinks of Laszlo as kind of more of a combatant to a degree, as we've seen as he was figuring out throughout the beginning of this season with the whole kind of shift in power dynamics with the people in the house. So he should really think of him more as like that kind of friend and father figure that Laszlo is able to present and do in this episode. It's just a very sweet moment throughout a kind of shit moment where Laszlo's like, fuck you, Dad, locks him in a stupid little thing because he's being a prick, and then still is able to balance it out. And it really works. And I love seeing the kind of crazy zaniness that we get from Nandor and Nadja, and having them work out together, even with the doll as well. I'm glad that we got all of the house people involved in the kinds of crazy zaniness going on. Nandor and Nadja together doing their stuff. I like seeing that because that's kind of usually different from the usual kind of dynamics that we usually see in the house, with mainly Laszlo and Nadja being paired together, and Nandor and Guillermo, and then Colin kind of get interchangeably put throughout the rest of them. And this just hit for me. Now, if it didn't hit for you, I totally get that. There's certain episodes that really haven't hit for me that with Shadows that could have hit for other people. But I just really enjoyed this and really thought that they did a very well done job here and executed it very well. And I can't wait to see what other kind of crazy shit we're going to be getting into. I mean, this is the 6th episode. We've got only 5 left. I mean, we've got 11, so let's kind of see where this fucking thing ends. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.